So Josh Taylor's first foray into the welterweight division ends in defeat, dropping a unanimous 12-round decision to Ekow Essuman. The three judges scored it 116-112, 116-113, and 115-113 respectively. Now in my pre-fight video, I spoke about the fact that Josh Taylor's been very inactive over the past few years. He's fought only once a year for 5 years straight. Ekow Essuman has fought double the number of times during that same period. So despite being a couple of years older, activity was on Essuman's side, although he hadn't been competing at the same level as Josh Taylor. But another thing which Essuman ostensibly had on his side was natural size. Josh Taylor, being a career 140-pounder, was moving up in weight to face Essuman, who actually turned pro back in 2016 at 154 pounds. So despite being a couple of inches shorter, never mind what it says on the broadcast about Essuman being 5'10", he's definitely not 5'10". He's a couple of inches shorter than Josh Taylor, but in terms of natural body mass, he's a bigger man. But what people were wondering is whether Taylor was the victim of being weight drained over the past few years at 140, because of course he got that controversial decision over Jack Catterall back in 2022, which most people feel like he was very fortunate to get. Then he lost to Teofimo Lopez in 2023 over 12 rounds pretty comprehensively. And then he lost to Jack Catterall in their rematch last year, also on points. So Taylor had been on a bad run of form, and people were wondering whether it was just age, wear and tear, or, as I say, being weight drained. His fans were certainly hoping to see a rejuvenated version of Josh Taylor against Ekow Essuman at 147. And that's exactly what we got, at least for the first 2 rounds. I thought he looked very good early on in this fight. So good, in fact, that I was wondering whether many of us had actually overestimated how competitive this fight was going to be. Because Taylor was boxing beautifully. He clearly had the faster hands. He clearly had the better footwork. He clearly had the classier moves. And he was pinging Ekow Essuman virtually at will at times, to head and body, with clean shots. But Essuman managed to come back in the third. Taylor then came back in the fourth. But as the fight progressed, Taylor noticeably slowed down. And the slower he got, the more Essuman was able to get into the fight, the more success he was able to have. You know, early on in the fight, Essuman was really struggling to land his right hand in the middle of the ring on the front foot. The shot was missing. Taylor was too savvy, and at that point, too quick and sharp. Essuman, on the front foot, struggles to get extension on his right hand. So he relies on getting opponents up against the ropes in order to land it, because it's more of a looping type of shot, more of a short punch. But as I say, as the fight progressed and Taylor began to slow down, what Essuman was able to do instead was actually walk Josh Taylor onto his right hand, have Taylor come at him and close the distance, and Essuman just meet Taylor's face with his glove. And going into the final third of the fight, it was really all Ekow Essuman. Taylor's punch output dropped down to only a fraction of what Essuman was producing, and you saw the natural welterweight strength start to show itself. Because early on, when Taylor had energy, you didn't see the strength advantage for Essuman. But generally, the bigger fighter's strength tends to show more so in the later rounds. We saw that, for example, in the Chris Eubank Jr. Conor Benn fight. And we saw it again here with Ekow Essuman against Josh Taylor. He was really bullying Taylor, let's say, over the final 4, roughing him up on the inside, pushing him back to the ropes. And Josh Taylor had to just resort to clinching a lot of the time. He wasn't willing to bang it out on the inside with Essuman, presumably because he thought he'd get the worst of it. So Essuman, who is a relatively crude fighter, let's be real, he's not as polished as Josh Taylor is. But he's strong, he's got great fitness. And again, despite being a couple of years older than Taylor, evidently he's the fresher fighter. So he kept applying that pressure, kept plugging away with his power shots. Josh Taylor did suffer a cut, which was the result of probably a clash of heads, but it was a weird one because in the slow-mo replay, you saw the head clash, but then literally right after the heads clashed, Essuman landed a right hand on Josh Taylor's eye. So maybe it was a combination of those 2 blows that caused that cut. Certainly the follow-up punch wouldn't have helped it any, right? And subsequent to that, Essuman kept targeting Josh Taylor's eye with his right hand, and he successfully landed on it a number of times. Anyway, there were no knockdowns in the bout. It went to the scorecards. All 3 judges having it in favor of Ekow Essuman, 116-112, 116-113, and 115-113. Initially, I thought the first scorecard was maybe a little wide, but I didn't score it round by round when I was watching it. Perhaps if I watched it back, my scorecard might be the same. In any event, it's kind of irrelevant because I certainly agree that the right man won. Ekow Essuman takes by far the biggest scalp of his career in former undisputed 140-pound titleist Josh Taylor. Presumably he moves on to bigger and better things. There's talk of him fighting Brian Norman Jr. There was also some talk a few years ago about Ekow Essuman fighting Conor Benn. Now at the time, it didn't seem realistic. In fact, it wasn't realistic. Essuman simply didn't have the profile to make that fight attractive to Mr. Benn. But after that win over Josh Taylor, it's a lot more realistic now. Not saying it's going to happen. Essuman might not even be that focused on a Conor Benn at this stage. Probably more focused on Brian Norman, although a Conor Benn fight presumably would pay him more, despite not being for a world title because of Conor Benn's profile coming off the back of that Chris Eubank Jr. fight. In any event, the immediate future looks pretty bright for Mr. Essuman, so I'll be interested to see who he fights next. Now, as for Josh Taylor, there are many people calling for him to retire, not just because he lost here to Essuman, who wasn't very highly touted going into this contest, but more so because of the fact that Taylor is on a bad run of form. He suffered 3 defeats on the bounce. Many people would argue it's actually 4 defeats on the bounce because they say he didn't deserve to get the split decision win over Cattrall in their first fight. So yeah, many are calling for him to retire. They think he doesn't have it anymore, while others are saying that Josh Taylor has simply been exposed and he was never that good to begin with. My take on it is this. Josh Taylor has been pro for 10 years. He's been fighting at world championship level for the past 6. He's now 34 years of age. Most fighters are not going to be as good at 34 as they were at 28, particularly in these weight classes. It's a bit different for heavyweights, but in these weight classes, nah. Very few fighters are going to be as good at 34 as they were at 28. When they've been fighting at this level, all the different camps, the tough fights, etc., there's going to be some degree of deterioration there. And unless you are a generational talent like Alexander Usyk, and Josh Taylor is not that. He's very good, but he's not great. He's not going to go down in history as one of the greatest fighters of all time, pound for pound. So unless you've got that level of talent and ability like an Usyk, where you've got such an advantage over your opposition in terms of talent and technique and fitness, that even when you start deteriorating, you're still able to beat everybody. Unless that's you, then once you reach your early 30s, you are going to start picking up losses. Partly due to the deterioration, but also perhaps because you've outgrown the weight class, and additionally, because boxing is a numbers game. Styles make fights. You may get through your first 19, 20 fights without encountering somebody that has a style that's kryptonite for you. But if you keep fighting for long enough, you're going to encounter that guy. Josh Taylor encountered that guy in his 19th fight. His name is Jack Cattrall. He came up against another style he couldn't deal with in Teofimo Lopez, and yet another style still in Ekow Essuman at a higher weight. Because while Josh Taylor may have been somewhat drained towards the back end of his run at 140 pounds, he had an advantage over many of those smaller guys that he did not have against Ekow Essuman, which is natural size, natural body mass. So I don't think it's any one thing that led to Josh Taylor losing this fight. I think it's a combination of factors. And I'm taking nothing away from Ekow Essuman, by the way. He was the better man on the night, clearly. But it would not be fair to act like this was the best version of Josh Taylor that has ever existed. How many welterweights or light welterweights are at their best at 34 years of age? Do you know what I mean? There might be 1 or 2 outliers over the years, but most of them are past their best by that age. Would a prime Josh Taylor have beaten Ekow Essuman? I don't know. But I suspect he would have won more rounds than this version of Josh Taylor. So at the very least, in my head, it would have been a closer fight. Anyway, it was what it was. Taylor took another L. He's going to have a long, hard think about what he wants to do with his career. He's been very successful. He's made a lot of money. He's used to being the A side. If he chooses to continue boxing, then he might find himself in situations where he's actually the B side. Is he willing to do that? We shall see. Anyway, let me know what you guys think about all this in the comment section below. Don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And before I go, make sure you check out my latest content on Patreon. This week on the boxing tier, I uploaded the full Dave Allen versus Johnny Fisher rematch fight footage with my commentary over it. So you can watch the fight blow by blow with me calling the shots rather than Adam Smith. And relive the down goes Johnny moment till your heart's content. Also on the boxing tier, I uploaded the infamous Kell Brook voice note. It's some guy from Kell Brook's inner circle in a WhatsApp chat group spilling the beans about Kell Brook's alternative lifestyle, giving backstory to a car crash that Kell Brook was involved in back in the days, and the weird events that led up to it. And also, the time when he got shanked in Spain. He explains the backstory behind that. That voice note was never meant to get out. but it did. It was sent to me probably 7 years ago or so by somebody from Sheffield, and it was doing the rounds online for a while, but it's since apparently been scrubbed from everywhere on the internet except for my Patreon page on the boxing tier, the Boxing Brotherhood. And on my topical tier, this week I've uploaded part 2 of The Mechanics of Faith, where I delve into why some people follow religion and why it actually helps them, and why other people don't follow religion, and in some cases, for the best. And in part 2 specifically, I explain why so many black men in the diaspora have turned their backs on the church and turned their backs on Christianity altogether. That's this week's topical content. And of course, if you sign up to my Patreon, you get access to my entire back catalog on the tier that you select, going back many, many years, hundreds and hundreds of episodes. And of course, last week on the topical tier, the Brotherhood of Reason, I uploaded an episode which was an instant hit, decoding the new movie Sinners. It went down fantastically well. In fact, you can listen to a free 10-minute sample of that decoding. Just click the link in the description box below. Anyway, I'll leave it there. I'll catch you on the next one. I'm out. If you want to access this video along with hundreds of hours worth of other exclusive boxing content, as well as our members chat, just head on over to my Patreon page and select the tier called the Boxing Brotherhood. There's no contract, no commitment. You can cancel at any time, just like Netflix, but it's a hell of a lot cheaper. Just download the app from the Play Store or the App Store. All the links are in the description box below. And just a quick money-saving tip for Apple users. If you purchase your Patreon subscription on the desktop site or on Android, then you'll avoid the ridiculous 30% fee that Apple charges for purchases made on the iOS app. So if you're on iPhone or iPad, save yourself some money by buying your subscription on the actual Patreon website or on Android, because it's a lot cheaper. Once you've made that initial purchase, you can then use the Patreon app on your iPhone or iPad thereafter to access and enjoy your content as normal.